Hey everyone. So yeah, this chapter went a little fucking insane. And I'll get to the part about Brooke in a bit here, but I do think I want to start this chapter out by by with Gabon and how he, after handily defeating Somers, he left to save the kids, and the aftermath of that, Chopper shifts into Walk Point and books it, following after Gabon for answers about how the hell he just did all that, like in defeating Summers. And I'll be honest, out of all the Straw Hats to take the initiative, Chopper was the lowest on my list, but I'm not complaining either. In fact, I really like that he is taking the initiative because, let's be honest, Chopper has been kind of benched a lot during the time skip. Like, in fact, I think the more I look at the time skip as a whole, I don't think Oda really made him a more active character until recently in Wano. So him taking that more active, reactive role now is very welcome, especially if what he learns could be useful and maybe provide some insight into how Straw Hats could potentially get stronger and how they could fight back against the God Knights. Although, given what was revealed at the end of the chapter, I think we are about to have our hands full enough as is again, and I'll get to that in a bit, but for now I do want to talk about what happened to Gabon when facing off against Gunko, because after having Colin held hostage, Gabon yields to save Colin, causing him to get shot down by Gunko and falling into the abyss below. And I know very likely this is going to be one of those more controversial moments to some, but I'm kind of okay with it for two reasons. The first is the strategic reason, and once again, Oda playing a little bit of chess by putting the final piece on the board to kind of bring things full circle, because I think Gabon is falling into the underworld where Loki, Luffy, and everyone else there. So Gabon landing there where they are will probably finally signal to them that something is going on right on the surface, and they really do need to set Loki free now in order to save everything. Then there's the more cynical narrative reason I like this, which is that while it is playing into the idea that Elbaf citizens have sacrificed a lot of what they used to be for the sake of peace, it's also pushing on the idea of why that is, because they choose to put faith in the next generation to forge a new path for Elbaf, and I think the Elbaf citizens are gonna the Giants of Elbaf are going to be being forced to reckon now with that particular scenario, that they may be forced to give up their history in order to sit for future generations to forge a new path. But okay, in saying that, yeah, let's go talk about Gunko and Brook, because Brook, you got a lot of explaining to do, starting with who the fuck you are. If I'm reading the context of this correctly, Brook is Gunko's father. At least that's what I think this chapter is implying. Either that or Brook was the one who killed her father, but regardless of whichever it is, this chapter has put our bony boy in the spotlight, where whatever that connection is, we need to know his full backstory now. Like, a Pandora's box has officially been opened, and now we need to know who Brook really is and just how he went from possibly being a member of one of the royal families of Marijwa to suddenly being a pirate. Because if Brook's Gunko's father, it's sounding like the way that her flashbacks are working, the way we can translate them, is that Brook faked his death, or both of them thought the other died and got separated. But regardless of which is like, Oda is pure fucking evil for just leaving us with a cliffhanger like this. Although, thankfully, we only have to wait a week for the next one, and this this whole like throwing Brook into this as well. This is getting so complicated because so many threads are being pulled on at once, to the point where all I can do is purely speculate of where Oda's going with any of them. And like, again, it's gonna be. I think what I'm most curious about with this reveal specifically is like how exactly it's going to fit into the timeline of One Piece. Like, obviously we've known that Brook, he knows a lot more than he ever lets on. So the fact that he could potentially be one of the members of a former member of one of the royal families of Marijwa is not all that surprising to me. it's just a matter of how it fits into his history is my question, of how it fits into the personal history we know of, like how this fits into before he joined the Rumbar Pirates kind of thing. So like yeah, just figuring out all these little details is definitely gonna be interesting to me. Uh, with that said, yeah, we need to talk about what happened with Gunko herself, because if I'm if I'm reading the room correctly on what happened here, we've now come face to face with Emu himself. Like Emu is somehow possessing Gunko and using her as a vessel. And yeah, I have a shit ton of questions, all having to do with the main theme of just what the fuck Emu is at this point, because I'm very tempted to believe Emu really is a god in a sense, yet I'd almost more characterize Emu as something closer to an earthbound spirit at this point, because the one major question that does pop up for me in this reveal is why doesn't Emu show itself personally? Why does it need to possess Gunko? Does it perceive itself as a holier-than-thou being that would sully itself by appearing in the lower world, or is there an actual reason Emu can't leave Marie Joie? Is it possibly bound to the castle in some way? And I'm more willing to kind of believe the latter at this point, because that then begs the overarching question of why even keeping his identity a secret from the general populace. And the only sense that makes anymore is it doesn't want its origins to be learned, because that would mean its weakness is also being exposed, which brings it back to my which brings it to my original thought process that whatever Emu is, I think it's in some ways bound to Marie Joie, unable to leave the castle. But of course, even more than that, with basically Emu's appearance here in the end of the chapter, and taking over Gunko's body to communicate with everyone, we basically learned that Marie Joie is under attack. It's so yeah, very so, which in itself signals that Dragon and the Revolutionaries are on the move. They've done all the preparations, and now they're on their final, and now they're basically at their, and they're making their final move. That they're attacking Marie Joie in force, which saying so Marie. So that very likely means that while all this has been going on at Elbaf, Dragon has just had suddenly attacked. And honestly, this is one of those things where I wouldn't mind if we cut away next chapter to see what's going on at Marie Joie, because even though both what's happening here at even though I'm sure what's going on here at Elbaf and what's happening at Marie Joie are both concurrently kind of important. Right now, I am really intrigued to see what exactly is happening at Marie Joie. Like, I want to see what the events of this big final battle between the revolutionaries and the government are going to look like, and just how that whole thing is going to play out. Because I, because with a war this big, I'm sorry, you pretty much can't. You pretty much can't just pretty much off screen that shit. We need to see what's going on there. And again, I wouldn't be against taking a break from. This is one time where I actually wouldn't be mind taking a break from Elbaf in order to see what's going on over there. Now, obviously, the other part of this to talk about though is Killingham and what's going on with the library and how the burning has officially begun. And admittedly, this is the part of the chapter I'm having trouble figuring out just what Oda is planning to do here, because I know I just got done with the whole analysis about what Oda's thematically done through Gaban, but simultaneously I'm struggling to comprehend if he's really going to go through with this or not for me, because for me, I thoroughly follow the rule of thumb that if something looks like it's going so too well, then something needs to happen to disrupt that. And I believe that to be the case for both the protagonist side of the story as well as the antagonist side as well. And to me, things are just going a little too easy for the Gods Knights right now in regards to this whole burning the library. Something has to happen to disrupt it, and I think in a way that's pretty much what this whole message from Emu about Marie Joie being under attack. I think that's what the disruption is, and I don't know if they're going to be called back or not. I don't know, but it's definitely I think what's likely to happen here is, I think that the more I look at it, I think what's likely to happen here is the God's Knights are probably going to get called back to Marais Joie, and then at that point, what's going to happen is going to have to focus on how they on how they figure out the on how they stop the fire and whatnot. I just that's how I'm basically thinking. It's just a matter of the details of how it happens. And while I personally don't know the likelihood of this, given that he's already followed after Gabon, I wouldn't mind seeing Chopper battle Killingham, given he wants to learn how to bypass their immortality, and fighting a God's Knight firsthand would kind of be the best way to handle that. Although, again, I think more than likely this is going to be Jinbei's wheelhouse, considering he's the one on the crew with the ability to readily put out the fires. It's just a matter of how he gets free. And again, it's all this is to say, like, it's really dependent on what happens. A lot of this, mind you, is dependent on what happens with the God's Knights, whether they get called back from Marais Joie or whether they stay here as antagonists. I don't know, but it's like, yeah, what else can I say? Things are definitely heating up, and I don't think it's gonna be. Yeah, I wonder, and it's a matter of like how this all gets resolved. Frankly, like we're running out of room to work. The Strouds are running out of room to work here, and I don't know what happens now. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Blue Sky, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to click the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Midnight signing off. Later, everyone.